The Cave of Whispers. My name is Alex Kane, retired Navy salvage diver. 22 years of pulling wreckage from ocean floors, and I thought I'd seen everything the deep could throw at a man. I'm recording this so there's a record, in case things go a certain way. If you're watching this, then something happened, or something is still happening. Either way, you need to know what's down there. It started with an old fisherman named Ramon. Met him at a bar in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, 3 weeks ago. Weathered guy, 60-something, hands like old rope. He'd had a few drinks, maybe more than a few, and he was telling anyone who would listen about a place the local fishermen called La Cueva de los Susurros, the Cave of Whispers. He said it sat at the edge of the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean, nearly 8.5 kilometers straight down. A place where sunlight hasn't touched water in geological time. A place where pressure climbs so high it would flatten your lungs like wet paper before your brain even registered the sensation of dying. Ramon said his grandfather had charted the location, that ships had been going missing there since before the century turned. Not sinking in storms, vanishing. Clean disappearances, like something had simply reached up and taken them. He said the local divers wouldn't go within 50 kilometers of the coordinates. He said they called it the place where the water sings. I bought him a drink. I bought him several. And then I bought his grandfather's old coordinates off a napkin for $40 American. I know how that sounds. I've been chasing fortune for a long time. Too long, maybe. When you've spent 2 decades diving wrecks and hauling up brass fittings and corroded coin for museum curators and insurance companies, a legend about lost ships starts to feel less like a fairy tale and more like a business opportunity. 3 days later, I had my submersible prepped and fueled at a rented dock in Ponce. My vessel, the Abyss Chaser, 6 years old, 4 meters long, single pilot. The interior is, well, imagine a coffin fitted with instrument panels, a fold-down seat, and emergency oxygen rated for 16 hours. When the hatch seals, you can feel the compression in your ears before you've even left the surface. I've logged over 300 dives in her. She's never let me down. Descent began at 0640 hours, local time. Clear morning. The ocean surface caught the sun like broken glass. By 500 meters, the glass was gone. At 2,000 meters, there is no color. The water takes everything. Red first, then orange, yellow, green. By the time you reach the deep sea layer, blue is all that's left, and then even that gives out, and there is only black. Absolute, total, indifferent black. Real black. Not the black behind your eyelids. Not the black of a power outage. I mean, the black that has never, in the entire history of the Earth, ever contained light. The black that makes you understand, on some pre-language level of your brain, that you were never meant to be here. At 4 kilometers, the Abyss Chaser was creaking steadily, every joint in her hull absorbing 60 times the pressure that exists at sea level. 60 atmospheres, 60 times the weight of everything above you pressing down. Down on the viewport, down on the hull, down on you, even through the reinforced titanium shell. The sonar was running standard sweeps, and then, at approximately 6.3 kilometers depth, it pinged something. Not the ocean floor, too early for the floor. Something in the water column. A return signature that the instrument rendered as a large, irregular opening in what should have been a seamount face. A cave, roughly 12 meters wide at its narrowest point, according to the sweep. The sonar couldn't tell me how deep it went. I sat there for about 30 seconds, staring at that ping. And then the radio started doing something strange. The signal degraded, which happens at depth, nothing unusual. But what replaced it wasn't static, it was structured. A low harmonic tone, like whale song processed through something mechanical. It rose and fell in slow, organic waves. And inside those waves, if you listen carefully, really carefully. You could almost hear words, 2 words, on repeat. Come. Deeper. I told myself it was signal bounce, acoustic interference. The ocean does strange things to sound. I've heard ships' hulls resonating at depth that sounded like voices before. I've heard thermal layers creating echo effects that spooked entire crews. I set the thrusters for the cave mouth. Entry was tight. The abyss chaser barely cleared the ceiling with 2 meters to spare, which sounds generous until you're actually maneuvering through it in near-zero visibility. Your floodlights doing about 8 meters of useful work before the dark swallows everything. The walls were wrong. I don't mean structurally, I mean visually. They should have been bare basalt, volcanic rock, deep-sea sediment crust, standard geological material. Instead, they were coated in something that pulsed. Slow, rhythmic, bioluminescent blooms, blue, green, violet, spreading and contracting like a heartbeat. Not algae. I know algae. This was something more organized. The patterns moved in concert. All of it. The full length of both walls, beating in unison, like the vascular tissue of something enormous, like the inside of something alive. I logged it as bioluminescent fungi, which is a real thing in deep-sea environments. I even smiled into my wrist camera for the YouTube log I was planning. Said something like, "Treasure vibes, folks. This is what they don't show you on the nature documentaries." My oxygen readout gave me pause. I'd been in the cave approximately 7 minutes. The gauge showed a draw rate about 15% higher than it should have been at current exertion. Not dangerous yet, but anomalous. I cross-checked the secondary sensor. Same reading. I told the camera it was probably a sensor calibration issue. The cave geometry didn't follow any logic I could map. I've spent my career reading underwater terrain. Limestone karst caves off Florida, volcanic sea caves near Iceland, flooded mine tunnels off the coast of Chile. They have rules. Water carves rock according to pressure and flow and time, and it leaves evidence of those forces in the shape of the space it creates. This cave left no such evidence. The walls shifted subtly, not enough to register on any single instrument. But over time, over minutes, the passage I'd entered was not quite the same passage. Angles that didn't match my entry log. Ceiling contours that had no geometric relationship to the entrance. As though the space was rearranging itself while I wasn't looking. I told myself it was instrument drift. The whispers were clearer now. No longer inside the radio static. Just present, coming from the walls themselves, or from the water, or from nowhere that I could localize. That slow marine frequency chant. Deeper, 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 deeper. The same syllables my fisherman's legend had described. The same sound the radio had made during descent. My flashlight beam caught movement twice. Both times, at the absolute edge of perception. Something crossing the beam too fast to identify. Angular, fast, wrong-sized for what the ecosystem could support at this depth. Anglerfish don't move like that. Anglerfish don't have that kind of mass. But I didn't have a better explanation. Then the rockfall. Portion of the ceiling behind me gave way. Gradual, then all at once. A cascade of sediment and fractured basalt that partially blocked my entry corridor. I did a rapid assessment. The blockage was incomplete. In theory, I could still reverse out, given sufficient thruster power and careful maneuvering. In theory. I said something into the camera, a quip. Something about how every great treasure hunt needs a complication. I was very breezy about it. My hands were not breezy. My hands were gripping the control yoke hard enough that my knuckles had gone white under the glove material. The whispers got louder. The bioluminescence in the walls was cycling faster now. And something in the water ahead of me, deeper in the cave, beyond my floodlight range, began to move. I'm going to try to describe what I saw accurately. I know how it's going to sound. I know that. But I need you to understand that I have spent my adult life in rational, dangerous environments, and what I'm about to describe is not a hallucination, not nitrogen narcosis, not instrument artifact. It was real. The silhouette came slowly. That's the part that stays with me. The patience of it. It didn't erupt or charge. It simply uncoiled. From somewhere in the darkness ahead, a shape began to resolve. It was large. I mean, genuinely, structurally large, in a way that my brain kept refusing to process, because nothing that size should exist. Nothing that size does exist, according to every biological survey of this trench that's ever been published. Its body was organized like a cephalopod, roughly, but armored, not soft flesh. Hard plates, curved and overlapping like the segments of an isopod, but massive, layered like an abyssal whale's bone structure, matte black and light-eating. No light bounced off it. My floodlights hit its surface and simply stopped. The tentacles came first into definition. Not the tentacles of a squid or octopus. The wrong number, the wrong arrangement, the wrong texture. They ended in structures that I can only describe as lamprey-like. Concentric rings of inward-facing teeth, each one large enough to close around my hull. And the eyes. 6 of them, that I could count. Arrayed in 2 rows along the upper anterior. Black and large, and utterly without pupil or iris. But they glowed. From within. A cold, sourceless phosphorescence. Not blue like the walls. Not any color I have words for. Something that my visual cortex kept trying to file and kept failing. They were looking at me. Not at my submersible. At me. Whatever was behind those eyes understood that I was inside the machine. It was looking at the smaller thing inside the larger thing. And it was patient. And it was curious. And it was ancient in a way that geological time barely contains. Then it moved. The abyss chaser shook hard enough to slam me against the instrument panel. A tendril had wrapped around the starboard thruster assembly, not attacking it seemed, just touching the way you might pick up something unfamiliar. But the touch bent titanium housing like cardboard and jammed the thruster at full stop. I hit emergency reverse on the port side, lurched left. The creature's head, if that's what to call it, tracked the movement with those 6 terrible lights. Another tendril came from below. I dropped ballast, went vertical, barely cleared it. Something scraped the hull below my feet. I could hear it through the metal, a sound like grinding stone combined with something organic and horrible that I don't have a word for. And through the suit glove on my left hand, which had been resting on the exterior control pad, when the tendril brushed the hull, I felt heat. Chemical burn heat. Something in the creature's surface tissue was caustic, and even through reinforced neoprene and titanium substrate, it got through. When I pulled my hand back inside, the glove tip was partially dissolved. My palm had a chemical burn the size of a silver dollar, and when I looked at it, in that half second before the pain registered, I saw something. A flash. Not a hallucination. A vision. Clear and specific and nauseating. The interior of an older submersible, a Cold War era design, manned by 2 people, both of them screaming. The vessel crumpling inward from all sides at once. The 2 people stopping. I saw the inside of a fishing vessel. Wooden hull, from below. Something wrapped around the keel. The lights going out. I saw 10 other endings, and all of them ended the same way, and all of them had these walls, and all of them heard these whispers. I blinked it away. I don't know how. I hit the cabin lights to full, grabbed the emergency flare canister from the port locker, standard marine rescue flares, burn white at 1200 degrees Celsius for 40 seconds, fired one through the forward ballast vent. The creature flinched. First movement that wasn't controlled, first thing that looked like involuntary reaction, and I used the half-second gap to jam the emergency drill from my toolset into the jammed thruster housing and physically crack it loose. The thruster caught. I ran. The cave was collapsing. I don't know if that was the creature, or if the creature's movement had destabilized the geological structure, or if the cave had never been fully stable, and I was only now experiencing what was always going to happen. It doesn't matter. What I know is that the ceiling was coming down in sections, and the passage behind me, the one partially blocked by rockfall, was now fully compromised, and I was calculating whether the gap was wide enough for the abyss chaser to fit through, even as I drove at it full speed. The creature was behind me. I knew it without seeing it. The water pressure changed, the sound changed, the whispers changed from invitation to something else, something I don't have a classification for that sat in the frequency range between aggression and grief. If those two things can exist simultaneously, which apparently they can. I went through the gap at maximum thruster output. The hull on the starboard bow caught a rock face, and the collision alarm went to full. Breach warning. Flooding imminent on the secondary forward compartment, which was sealed from the main cabin, but which contained my emergency buoy and my surface communication array. Both gone. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind me, I heard, through the water, through the hull, through the rock, something that might have been a cry. Long, structured, subsonic, like whale song, but emptied of anything warm. The same harmonic as the radio static during descent. The same frequency as the walls. The cave mouth hit me with a surge of water pressure that spun the abyss chaser 40 degrees off axis. I came out of the cave rotating. One thruster still compromised. Secondary compartment flooding. Left hand now past the point of usable. And then I had open water. 6 kilometers of open water above me. And whatever was behind me had stopped at the cave mouth. I could see it on the rear camera for 10 seconds, maybe 15. Those 6 lights, hovering at the edge of the dark, watching me ascend. And then it did something I cannot explain. It pulsed. All 6 eyes, all the bioluminescent tissue in the walls behind it. Everything lit up in synchrony. One massive bloom of cold fire, and the whispers came through the water so clearly that they were no longer ambiguous at all. You carry me now. Ascent took 3 hours and 40 minutes. Emergency protocols required decompression stops at 600 meters and again at 200. Skip them, and I'd have bubbles in my blood that would kill me faster than the flooding secondary. I made both stops. I don't remember them clearly. I was managing the flooding, managing my oxygen, managing my hand, which had stopped hurting by then in a way that worried me more than the pain had. When the hull broke surface, it was full dark. I'd been below for nearly 12 hours. I fired my last 2 surface flares and drifted for 4 hours before a Coast Guard vessel picked up the visual. By then, I'd lost about 2 liters of blood from the burn site on my palm, which had reopened sometime during the ascent, and which I'd packed with emergency dressings that were no longer doing much good. The Coast Guard medic asked me what happened. I told her I'd had a thruster malfunction and a hull breach. She believed me. Everyone believes the simple story. I'm back on shore now. My hand is wrapped. The doctors found something in the wound. A fragment. Biological material. Non-human. No match in any database they ran it through. Too dense for tissue. Too structured for mineral. About 4 centimeters long. Slightly curved. It's embedded in the metacarpal of my left hand, and they say extraction risks nerve damage, and I should leave it for now. I can feel it. Not pain. It doesn't hurt. It's more like a pulse. Slow and regular, and not quite matching my heartbeat. Like something with a different rhythm is keeping time inside me. Like it's listening, the way those eyes listened. Patient and waiting, and certain that it has whatever time it needs. I dream about the walls, the bioluminescence, that chant. I've been thinking about how old that cave must be, how long something would have to live, in permanent dark, in permanent cold, under that pressure, developing that kind of intelligence, if intelligence is even the right word for what I saw looking back at me. I've been thinking about the crews of the ships that went missing over those coordinates, the people in the vision I had when the tendril touched my hull, the ones who went in before me and never came back. I've been thinking about the fact that it let me go. It didn't have to do that. Whatever it is, it's not limited. It's not afraid of me, or my flares, or my hull, or anything I brought down there. It touched me, and it showed me its history, and it said what it said, and it let me rise. So this is my log, and this is my warning. And if you find these coordinates in my dive files, don't go there. Don't go anywhere near there. Don't let curiosity or money or ambition talk you into it the way it talked me. There is something in the Puerto Rico Trench, in a cave that moves, with walls that breathe and eyes that remember every ship, every crew, every last frightened face it has ever consumed. It is real, and it is patient, and it is hungry.